Atz Lee Kilcher was once seen as the kind of man most people only read about in adventure books. Born in Alaska, he lived in a world that many would call unforgiving, yet for him it was simply home. The Alaskan wilderness, with its snowy mountains, icy waters, and unpredictable weather, shaped every part of his life. While most people would fear being cut off from modern comforts, Atz Lee thrived in the wild. He learned to hunt, fish, and survive without the safety nets of city life. By the time he was a young boy, he could already track wild animals, read weather signs, and build fires in storms that would send most people running indoors. His family's homestead near Homer, Alaska, was more than just a place to live. It was a school, a workplace, and even a stage where Atz Lee and his relatives proved their strength every day. His family name carried weight in Alaska long before cameras ever arrived. His father, Atz Sr., had built a life on the land while also becoming a known folk singer. His sister Jewel became a worldwide music star, selling millions of albums and winning Grammy nominations. For Atz Lee, however, fame would not come from music or cities, but from something far more dangerous: living at the edge of survival. When Discovery Channel introduced Alaska, the last frontier in 2011, millions of viewers were instantly drawn to the Kilcher family. Atz Lee quickly stood out as the fearless one. He climbed cliffs, hunted dangerous animals, and faced freezing storms without showing fear. He became the face of real adventure, the proof that in a world filled with technology and comfort, there were still people who lived the old way. His Instagram showed pictures of breathtaking landscapes, hunting trips, and happy family moments that only added to his image. To fans, he seemed like the perfect example of a strong man who loved both nature and family. But as with many stories of fame, what looked perfect on the outside was hiding struggles that would one day change everything. In June 2015, Atz Lee faced a moment that would not only change his life, but also reveal just how fragile even the strongest people can be. He was exploring Otter Cove, a remote part of Alaska filled with dangerous cliffs and sharp rocks. Known for its beauty, but also for its risks, the area demanded respect from anyone who visited. Atz Lee, at the peak of his physical strength, was there with a friend. But even his years of wilderness experience could not protect him from what happened next. As the daylight began to fade, he stepped on unstable ground near the cliffside. In a split second, his foot slipped, and instead of solid earth, he found only empty air. He fell over 40 feet down onto the rocks below. The impact was catastrophic. His arm shattered in several places, his ribs broke and punctured his lungs, his hips and ankles were smashed, and internal bleeding threatened his life. For most people, such injuries would have been fatal on the spot. But thanks to his friend's quick thinking and a satellite phone, a Coast Guard helicopter was called in. Rescuers described it as a miracle that he survived the flight to Anchorage. Doctors fought to keep him alive as his body battled the damage. Atz Lee's wife, Jane, received the terrifying phone call in the middle of the night, rushing to his side. The next months were filled with surgeries, pain, and slow recovery. Atz Lee, once known for constant motion, now struggled to lift a cup of water without agony. Yet even in his weakest moments, he showed resilience. He shared updates online, posting X-rays and messages of gratitude. He told his followers that the accident humbled him and reminded him how precious life truly was. Fans admired his courage, but behind the scenes, the accident marked the start of a new chapter, filled with both physical struggles and deeper challenges that would test his entire life. Atz Lee's accident didn't just leave scars on his body, it shook his family to the core. His wife, Jane, who had already been used to the harsh realities of Alaskan life, suddenly found herself not only as a caretaker, but also as a protector of their children's emotional well-being. Jane later admitted in interviews that watching her husband in pain was worse than anything she had ever faced in the wilderness. She had to manage the homestead, support her kids, and spend long days at the hospital all at once. At times she broke down in private, but in front of Atz Lee she stayed strong. Fans also felt deeply connected to his recovery journey. Thousands of comments poured in on his social media posts, where people shared prayers, encouragement, and their own stories of survival. For many viewers, Atz Lee's accident was a reminder that even the strongest individuals are vulnerable. The Discovery Channel highlighted parts of his recovery on Alaska, the last frontier, showing how difficult it was for him to return to daily life. Simple tasks like walking around the homestead or carrying wood became massive challenges. For a man who was once known for climbing cliffs and hunting wild animals, these struggles were heartbreaking to watch. Still, the Kilcher's strong family bond kept him motivated. His father and siblings visited often, helping where they could while Jane carried much of the burden. Yet behind all the encouragement, whispers began spreading. Some fans wondered if Atz Lee had been too reckless, taking unnecessary risks for thrills. Others felt that Discovery might be pushing the family to do dangerous things for ratings. This tension between admiration and criticism followed him in the years after the fall. While he worked hard to recover physically, the emotional wounds, both personal and public, would take much longer to heal. Legal trouble and shocking charges. Just when it seemed like Atz Lee was finally regaining stability, another storm hit. This time, not from nature, but from the law. In 2015, around the same time as his accident, Atz Lee and Jane were charged with unlawfully using a helicopter to hunt a black bear. In Alaska, hunting laws are strict and deeply respected, since they are meant to protect wildlife populations and ensure fair practices. Using aircraft in any way to assist in hunting is considered illegal, and violators can face heavy fines or even jail time. For a family that had built its reputation on respecting nature and living by the rules of survival, these charges came as a shock. Fans were divided. Some refused to believe that Atz Lee would knowingly break such laws, arguing that he was too experienced to make that mistake. Others pointed out that reality television often puts pressure on stars to push boundaries, suggesting that Discovery's cameras might have encouraged risky or even questionable behavior. The case dragged on, adding stress to Atz Lee's already heavy recovery period. His name appeared in headlines not for heroism or survival, but for criminal accusations. Jane, who was also included in the charges, stood by her husband, calling the whole situation unfair. Eventually, the case was settled without serious jail time, but the stain on his reputation was undeniable. To some fans, Atz Lee was no longer the flawless wilderness hero. He was human, capable of mistakes, of poor judgment, and of facing consequences. The legal trouble revealed another side of fame, that every action, even in the remote corners of Alaska, could be scrutinized and judged by millions. While Atz Lee tried to move forward, the shadow of the case lingered, raising questions about whether the demands of television had finally pushed him too far. Fame, pressure, and the dark side of reality TV. Atz Lee's struggles highlighted a reality many viewers often forget. Reality television may capture real life, but it also creates enormous pressure. On Alaska, the last frontier, the Kilchers were shown hunting, fishing, and battling brutal winters. But the presence of cameras meant that every challenge had to be dramatic, every scene gripping enough to hold the audience. Over time, this pressure can push cast members to take risks they might not normally consider. Atz Lee, known as the thrill seeker of the family, often became the center of these high-stakes moments. Whether climbing icy cliffs or hunting dangerous animals, his role was to embody the fearless spirit of Alaska. But after the fall and the legal troubles, it became clear that this lifestyle was taking a heavy toll. Reports suggested that he sometimes felt trapped between being himself and being the version of himself that fans expected. Off camera, he was a husband and father who loved quiet family moments. On camera, he was the daring adventurer who stared down danger. The gap between those two identities grew wider over the years. Jane also shared hints of this pressure in interviews, saying that fame wasn't always as glamorous as it looked. The constant attention, the criticism from strangers, and the need to perform for millions created stress on their marriage. While many admired their resilience, insiders close to the show began noticing cracks. Fame had brought money and recognition, but it had also brought scrutiny and unrealistic expectations. Atz Lee's journey was no longer just about survival in the wilderness. It was about surviving fame itself. And that, in many ways, was a battle even harder than facing an Alaskan winter. A farewell that broke fans' hearts. In the years following his accident and legal troubles, Atz Lee began appearing less frequently on the show. Fans noticed his absence and flooded social media with questions. Was he okay? Was he leaving the show? The silence fueled rumors. Some believed he was quietly stepping away due to ongoing health problems. Others speculated that family tensions or legal pressures had pushed him out. In time, Atz Lee himself confirmed what many had feared. He was saying goodbye to Alaska, the last frontier. For fans who had watched him grow from a young, daring homesteader into a man who fought through incredible challenges, this news felt like a gut punch. The Kilcher family would still be there, but without Atz Lee, it simply wouldn't feel the same. His departure marked the end of an era. On social media, he expressed gratitude for the years of support, but hinted that the decision wasn't easy. He spoke of focusing more on family, personal healing, and living away from the spotlight. While some fans were devastated, many respected his choice, acknowledging that no amount of fame or money could outweigh peace of mind and personal happiness. His farewell also raised broader questions about the cost of reality television. How many other stars were silently struggling behind the scenes? How much of what fans saw was real, and how much was the result of production demands? Atz Lee's exit became a reminder that television is temporary, but real life, the health, family, and peace he longed for, was permanent. Legacy of a wilderness survivor. Even though Atz Lee stepped away from the show, his story continues to inspire. He proved that survival is not just about battling nature, but also about enduring personal pain, public criticism, and the pressures of fame. His fall from the cliff was a symbol of how quickly life can change, but his recovery showed the strength of the human spirit. His legal troubles reminded people that mistakes are part of being human, no matter how strong or experienced someone might be. And his decision to leave television highlighted the importance of protecting one's mental and emotional well-being above all else. Today, Atz Lee's name still carries weight in discussions about Alaska, the last frontier. Fans continue to share clips of his most daring adventures, often calling him the heart of the show. His absence is deeply felt, but it also adds to his legend. He remains, in the eyes of many, the man who gave everything, his health, his peace, and nearly his life, to show the world what it means to live at the edge of survival. For some, his departure feels like the end of the show's golden age. For others, it's a powerful lesson that even in a world obsessed with fame, choosing family, healing, and personal peace is the greatest act of courage. Atz Lee Kilcher was once seen as the kind of man most people only read about in adventure books. Born in Alaska, he lived in a world that many would call unforgiving, yet for him it was simply home. The Alaskan wilderness, with its snowy mountains, icy waters, and unpredictable weather, shaped every